Hello there. I'm some of you, but mostly Polish speakers, obviously, might know me as KolegaAnarchista from couple previous campaigns, mostly World of Darkness stuff on the obviously channel Lore of Darkness. And today we've prepared a review of Imperium Maledictum, a newest RPG addition into the Warhammer 40k setting. So, onto the review itself. It is the 41st Millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Terra. He is the master of mankind, the will of the gods, and a master of million worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass writhing invisibly with the power from the dark age of the technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die, for in the grim dark future there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of the thirsting gods. The Crusade, led by the War Master Abaddon the Despoiler, contributed to the destruction of Cadia, consequently, the emergence of Cicatrix Maledictum, a rift in reality that brought forth time known as Noctis Aeterna upon the galaxy. During this period, the light of Astronomicon was not visible, and communications through Astropass became impossible. The eternal night led to the downfall of many worlds within the Imperium Sanctus located south of the rift. So, the setting of the game itself is Macarian Sector, an area of relative tranquility until the onset of Noctis Aeterna. Imperial authority here was ostensibly strong, but it was undermined by various factors. The sector itself has recently fallen under the rule of Terra. Several centuries before the fall of Cadia, the crusade led by Lord Solar Macarius conquered this area, let's call it. Many plans were brought into the Imperium's fold, eagerly adopting both its creed and its administration. This allowed the local aristocracy not only to maintain dominance and protect the inhabitants, but also to preserve fragments of their culture and traditions. Consequently, memories of times before Macarius' arrival are still alive, and many aristocrats secretly fund rebels. The machinations of cultists and xenos still come into play. All of this ultimately leads to a catastrophe. The Noctis Aeterna changed everything. Disrupted communication paths led to the resurgence of ancient disputes, and many planets found themselves on the brink of ruin. Shortage of food and resources, the exposure of lies told by the imperial propaganda led to the outbreaks of rebellions on many planets. This dark period has passed, but the situation has not necessarily improved. Only the capital, Cypheris, can claim to have the situation under control. In the remaining 4 sectors, peace prevails only on the main communication routes. The Adeptus Terra is attempting to restore order in the sector with the help of tens of millions of guardsmen and specially designed 40th battle group from the Indomitus Tertius fleet, along with its countless ranks of ordinary adepts. All of this provides the team and its patron with an opportunity to make a mark on the political stage of the sector and climb the ranks of power. The Imperium Maledictum core book describes the universe in a rather specific manner. Kinda similar to the Wrath of Glory, there is very little general information about the universe. Basic terms are not explained because the authors assume that the reader has more or less general knowledge of the setting and the factions present as well as their mutual relations. The focus here is primarily on the extensive detailing of the Macarian sector along with its history and politics. There is also information about the activities of various branches of Adeptus Terra and minor faction characteristics of the sector, including free traders and more or less loyal noble houses, for example. The core book also includes descriptions of dozens of significant planets, both along with the ideas for adventures and campaigns related to them. Classic Warhammer 40k elements such as heretics, cultists, and pre-imperial mysteries are present, but there are also many innovations. There is significant emphasis put on non-chaotic heretics and rebels, allowing player-led affairs to be ideologically ambiguous. Character creation. In Imperium Maledictum, we embody agents working for a patron who is an individual possessing a certain level of authority higher than ours within the Imperium. The patron cannot handle everything alone, obviously, so they need capable hands to get the job done. He or she assembles a group of agents to handle their dirty and heretical interests, acting as an extension of power and stand-ins for insignificant matters. One could say it's a bit of a mix between the agents of the Inquisition from Dark Heresy and the framework from Wrath and Glory. Our team must have a patron. Interestingly enough, the Imperium Maledictum handbook assumes that we will play characters from lower ranks of the ladder, and only the interest of the patron gives us a semblance of freedom and a bit of control over our own lives. So, who can we play? In the Imperium of Man, we belong to one of the factions if we want to have any say. Some belong to the Administratum, the massive governmental apparatus of the Imperium, but what other factions can we belong to? For example, Adeptus Astra Telepathica, a group of responsible for acquiring, controlling, and training Psykers. They provide battle Psykers as well as fuel for the Golden Throne. Alongside Psykers, there are also the Silent Sisters, individuals completely resistant to the influence of the warp. Or maybe you wanna play someone from Adeptus Mechanicus, the technicians, scientists of the Imperium, simultaneously adherent to the sole legal cult of the Omnissiah, aside from the faith in the Emperor, obviously. Tech priests are responsible for the functioning of technology and ensuring production lines deliver equipment. The Mechanicus is not interested in further technological advancement and approaches existing technology with a great religious reverence. Or maybe you wanna play someone from previously mentioned Administratum, a bureaucrat with specialists in audits across the galaxy. Their task is to record and archive, usually analogously, any information that comes into their hands. Simultaneously, they manage an entire flow of goods within the Imperium. Or maybe you wanna play a regular soldier from the Guard. Well, obviously you can play someone from Astra Militarum, an army consisting of men and women taken from their home planets to fight in the name of the Emperor. Surviving in the Guard is very challenging, although they are considered the elite of the Imperial Army. Adeptus Ministrum is also available, the Imperial clergy, priests of the God Emperor, tasked with spreading the faith and indoctrinating the masses. Mistorum includes Battle Sisters, an elite group of female orders engaged in combat, political activity, medical work, missionary work, and scholarly pursuits. Or maybe you prefer a little more detectivistic work as an inquisitor, a combination of imperial intelligence and secret police. They combat internal threats, external threats, supernatural. The Inquisition has unquestionable authority, and even the most influential entities fear their inspections. Moreover, they have agents practically everywhere. Imperial Navy is also available. Officers and crews of Imperial ships so powerful they can destroy entire planets. They defend the worlds against Xenos threats. Or maybe you wanna play a merchant, so someone from a rogue trader dynasty. The few truly independent entities in the Imperium with a merchant charter, a document that allows them not only to trade beyond the Imperium borders, but also to move freely within its boundaries. Or maybe you're just a regular infractionist, a faction that encompasses bandits, criminals, smugglers, murderers, and those who operate outside the boundaries of Lex Imperialis. They rule wastelands, sub-cities, and forgotten settlements. This is a list of playable factions of basic level. Interestingly enough, Adeptus, Arbites, and local nobility are absent. Onto the role selection. The patron provides the characters with training, which is the reason why we chose that particular patron. In the group, each character fulfills a specific role. Their role is also a way to solve problems, something between an archetype and a calling. In the core rulebook, there are 6 roles. Interlocutor, an expert in building relationships with others and persuading them to their point of view. A mystic, specialist psyker, expertly controlling the warp and providing supernatural support for the team. A savant, a specialist in seeking and practically utilizing knowledge such as medic or a technician. Penumbra, a spy, scout, assassin, a specialist in training, someone who chooses to solve problems discreetly. A warrior, a specialist in harming others and the driving force of the group. And a zealot, a loyal servant of the Emperor spreading his word and wrath, skilled in both combat and rhetoric. Through roles, we gain various bonuses, usually 2 talents, although Interlocutor and Mystic have more, 3 skill advances, and 2 specializations, as well as substantial amount of specific equipment. Roles are not randomly assigned, they are chosen and or entrusted to the patron, i.e. the game master, which grants the players 25 experience points. Although you are able to choose the role yourself if you want to, but then you won't get the additional XP. After choosing the origin, faction, and the role, it is time for modifications to the initial characteristics and skills. You choose height, weight, etc. Then you proceed to narrative background, including short and long-term goals, relationships with other team members. Achieving goals brings an appropriate amount of experience. Finally, you need to calculate resilience and spend the experience accumulated during the character creation. The entire character creation process in Imperium Maledictum is straightforward, though it takes some time to truly master it. If we were to compare it, for example, to Dark Heresy, it is much more streamlined. You simply go step by step. Many things have been simplified. Additionally, the whole process is modular, so there won't be any issues with adding new elements related to the creation of both the patron as well as characters in future expansions. The only thing that could be a little bit criticized is that there is not enough ideas for the teams themselves. In, for example, Wrath of Glory, we have specific ideas for what the team is involved in. Here, the patron takes care of that, and it would be nice to have a list of teams specifically tailored to specific factions or callings. Going over the mechanics. As you play the Imperium Maledictum, you will face countless challenges. Can you persuade the adept to give you access to the records you need, or maybe disarm a melta-bomb before your transport ship is blown into the cold void of space? All of the factions you will take will succeed automatically. Things like, for example, drawing a weapon, or going up the ladder, or generally a routine use of skill you are trained in. For situations where the success of an action is in doubt or is opposed by another party, you will need to make a test. Imperium Maledictum is based on the classic Warhammer mechanics, slightly streamlined, enhanced, and rewarded for better clarity. But how do they work exactly? We have 3 types of tests here: routine, opposed, and extended. So first of all, when you're making a test, you need to choose the skill or specialization that's being tested. Then you will need to determine how many boons and complications you have to establish the difficulty of the test based on the complexity of the action and the amount of previously mentioned boons and complications. Modify the test by the difficulty. then simply roll a d100 and read the result. It's worth noting though that the value between 1 and a 5 gives us an automatic success, while results between 96 and 100 result in failure. Then you will need to calculate the success level, which you do by subtracting the tens digit from the unit digit in the rolled number. And then you need to modify the obtained success level with an additional levels, for example from talents, influences, or superiority. The test is considered successful when we have a positive level of successes. At first it may sound a little bit complicated, but in reality you just need to know when to apply the difficulty and when to apply the additional success levels. Importantly though, in the Imperium Maledictum we have a kind of result scale that allows you to, using the number of success levels, it allows you to assess how well the test is passed, and it's basically used for storytelling purposes. In the Imperium Maledictum, fate points are used either by spending them or by burning them. The first option allows you to add one success level, or reroll a test, or act at any point in turn ignoring initiative, disregard the effects of critical hits and conditions for an entire turn, and remove a condition. By burning fate levels, you can turn character death into a narrow survival, or completely ignore the damage from a single attack, or ignore a result from a mutation roll, or simply add a level of determination to the team. Advantage and disadvantage. In the Imperium Maledictum we have an entirely new advantage and disadvantage mechanic, which provides bonuses or penalties that you receive during the game. When conditions like terrain or other environmental factors influence a test, then this system comes into play. If you have the test with advantage, then you swap the dice values after the roll, for example from 82 to 28. If you have a disadvantage, you do the exact opposite. So if you rolled 28, you will have the result of 82. Generally, advantages and disadvantages simplify the mechanics, although having them in excessive amounts give you plus 10 or minus 10 to the test for each additional one, potentially causing issues with managing their excess. And this also introduces an additional step which is crucial when determining the difficulty of the test. The influence. Influence is an attribute that reflects the relationship of a given independent character or a faction to the character or their patron. Influences ranges from 5 to -5, with 0 treated as a neutral state. The level of influence translates into additional successes when you are making a social skill with someone from a given faction. Influences are divided into those belonging to characters and those belonging to patrons and factional and personal. Patron influences are secret and can change between sessions. When our character invokes the influence of a patron, they lose the ability to develop their own influence, and for a team, invoking such influences may jeopardize the reputation of their patron. The game master may also establish certain influence entities, and their nature will depend on the campaign character. When making a test, we need to add all the relevant influences, and influences can be consolidated. The rules of combat. So first of all, when starting a combat round, you need to determine the initiative. And initiative determines the turn order, and it is equal to your perception and agility bonuses. During your turn, your character can move and take an action. Besides attacks, other actions are also available. Melee combat is treated as an opposed test, while ranged is a routine, although situations may arise, such as when opponent declared a dodge action where the test becomes opposed. Damage is the weapon's base value plus the success levels obtained from the test. Then from the total damage you subtract the armor, although it is worth noting that you subtract armor, not toughness, and then you reduce your wounds level by the remaining number. Taking cover provides you with 3 and 6 points of armor against ranged attacks respectively. Rolling a double indicates luck. With a positive number of success levels, it becomes a critical hit, and with a negative number, it becomes a misfortune, involving a roll with a table for nasty effects. Additionally, a double rolled by the defender in an opposed melee combat test also signifies a critical hit. Moreover, encountering a misfortune doesn't mean you miss. You can hit the opponent and hurt yourself simultaneously. A critical hit occurs when a double is rolled or when the target's wounds are depleted. To determine its effect, you roll a d10 and add the amount of damage by which you exceeded the wounds. A character whose wounds drop to 0 can only perform one action in the round, either an action or movement, but they also must pass a toughness test each turn to avoid losing consciousness. Attacking enemies from hiding is very effective, it grants advantage, and deals automatic critical hit. All modifiers in combat are based on described advantage and disadvantage system. Mechanics such as aiming for specific locations, charging, dual wielding, or shooting beyond the weapon's range also utilize this system. Superiority is an entirely new system for controlling the battlefield, allowing the group to manage the situation. The team gains a level of superiority each time they defeat an enemy of the leader or elite type, or at least as many minions as the enemies resolve, and they lose it along with the first critical hit suffered by each character. Superiority can be acquired by preparing for the encounter, or by learning about the opponent or the battlefield. Superiority provides each character with a bonus to success levels equal to its level for use once per round. If the superiority value exceeds the resolve of the opponents, they become desperate, meaning they will either flee or surrender. Resolve itself is a very interesting factor. This value is determined by the relevant characteristic of the main antagonist and factors such as numerical advantage, lack of survival chances, or defending their home. Psionics. Imperium Maledictum dedicates an entire chapter to psionics. Activating psychic powers is quite simple and only requires a successful psychic mastery test, supported by a specialization related to the appropriate discipline. A successful test means triggering the power, which works according to its description. Each use of a power, successful or not, results in the Psyker gaining a certain amount of warp charges. When the sum of charges exceeds the warp threshold, then the trouble begins. At that point, the Psyker must test Psychic Mastery every round. If successful, they merely start glowing, containing all the warp within. But if the test fails, the warp escapes in all directions, causing various negative effects. Charges can be safely removed through an action and a Psychic Mastery test. Generally speaking, being a Psyker is very dangerous, but it provides access to a large number of powerful powers. 21 minor powers and 10 for each of the 5 specializations, so biomancy, divination, pyromancy, telekinesis, and telepathy. This is more than both Dark Heresy and Wrath of Glory. The foul corruption of chaos. Our characters participating in various adventures gain corruption points. This increase can be limited by resistance or discipline tests. However, there is high likelihood, given the nature of the work, that they will eventually accumulate enough to become a problem, i.e. more than the sum of their willpower and endurance bonuses. Successful test temporarily halts corruption until contact with the next corrupting influence. However, failure on the test results in the hero's body or soul being permanently altered, manifesting as either physical mutation or madness. Not all corruptions are bad though, but revealing them is an easy way to end up as stake. Additionally, if a character collects too many, they transform into a chaos spawn. Corruption can be cleansed, of course, but it's not easy and usually involves a major task. Events between adventures. The final element of the mechanics gives the players the opportunity to decide what their characters do between tasks. In Imperium Maledictum, such endeavors are divided into a team and personal activities. Team activities allow for increase or decrease of patrons' influence, collective combat training, or upgrading their operational base. Personal activities offer the opportunity for additional earnings or gaining new allies. Additionally, once between adventures, each character rolls on a random event table to see what adventures befall them between patron tasks. To summarize, Imperium Maledictum draws certain elements from systems such as Dark Heresy and Wrath of Glory, but at the same time it doesn't rigidly adhere to the rules of those games and introduces many new elements. Personally, I really like the direction the game took and how they rebuilt their foundations. The rules of advantages and complications, despite some minor flaws, are great. Same goes for the superiority states, which are significantly simplified compared to other Warhammer 40k systems, and psionics. Imperium Maledictum is a game about characters torn from the imperial social structure and working for powerful patrons. The game allows for conducting investigations in the underground, tracking cultists, heretics, or smugglers, but also engaging in politics, searching for lost wars, exploring cosmic wrecks, and investigating ruins left by Xenos. Despite the extensive description of the Macarian sector, there is plenty of room for personal storylines. The rulebook also includes a bestiary and basic rules for building conflicts. Generally, Imperium Maledictum is a very solid game. It's another journey into grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where there is only war and a return to well-known engine that the generations of Warhammer fans have grown up with. The mechanics of Imperium Maledictum are based both on the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, as well as 2nd edition of Dark Heresy, but it's much more smoother and easier for new players. And despite the fact that the rulebook doesn't offer a low entry level in terms of world and factions and their relationships, it is quite enjoyable for beginner players. So, that would be all for today's review. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you next time.